The lawyer's words echoed in my head like a death knell. Your mother left everything to you, Ryan. The house, the investments, the whole estate. $2.4 million. I should have been grieving. Mom had been gone only 3 days. Instead, I sat in that mahogany-paneled office feeling nothing but numbness, clutching the folder containing her will, while my wife Melissa squeezed my hand. Her touch felt different somehow. Urgent. Hungry. We should celebrate Mom's life tonight, I said quietly as we left the law office. Maybe order from that Italian place she loved. Actually, I need to run some errands, Melissa replied, already pulling out her phone. Grocery shopping, dry cleaning, you know how it is. I did know. For the past 8 months, Melissa always had errands, always had somewhere to be. Our 15-year marriage had become a choreographed dance of near misses and convenient absences. I'd attributed it to her new position at the marketing firm, the longer hours, the stress. We all make sacrifices, I'd told myself. But something twisted in my gut as I watched her fingers fly across her phone screen in the car, a small smile playing at her lips. My mother's death had cracked something open inside me, made me see the world with sharper edges. Who are you texting? I asked. Just Amber, from work. She didn't look up. She's asking about you. Amber. The name came up a lot these days. Amber this, Amber that. I'd never met her, despite multiple suggestions that we all grab dinner sometime. There was always a reason why it didn't work out. When we got home to our split level in suburban Milwaukee, Melissa disappeared into the bedroom to change. I stood in the kitchen, still holding that folder, and realized I couldn't remember the last time my wife had looked me in the eyes. Really looked at me, the way she used to when we were young and broke and happy. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother Tyler. Mom would be proud of you, man. You were there for her until the end. Call me if you need anything. I was typing a response when I heard Melissa's heels clicking down the hallway. She'd changed into her good jeans and that green blouse I'd bought her for Christmas. The one she said was too nice for everyday wear. I'll be back in a few hours, she said, grabbing her purse. Wait. The word came out harder than I intended. Where exactly are you going? She froze, her back to me. I told you, errands. Dressed like that? For the grocery store? When she turned around, her expression was carefully neutral. What's that supposed to mean? It means I just inherited $2.4 million. My mother is dead, and my wife can't spare a few hours to sit with me. That's not fair, Ryan. Her voice took on that edge of patient exasperation I'd heard so often lately. I'm dealing with my own stuff. My job is incredibly demanding right now, and I need to decompress. You're not the only one under stress. What stuff? What's so demanding that you can't tell me about it? I don't have time for this. She headed for the door. Melissa. She stopped but didn't turn around. Are you having an affair? The question hung in the air between us like smoke. I hadn't planned to ask it, hadn't even fully formed the thought until it left my mouth. But once it was out there, it felt true. Horribly, crystalline true. How dare you, she said, her voice shaking. But she still didn't turn around, still didn't look at me. My husband's mother just died, and he's accusing me of cheating. That's really low, Ryan. Then look at me and tell me I'm wrong. For a long moment, she stood motionless. Then she walked out, closing the door quietly behind her. Not a slam. A slam would have been emotion. This was something worse. This was dismissal. I stood there in my kitchen, in the house we'd bought together 12 years ago, and felt the foundation of my life shifting beneath my feet. The silence pressed down on me like a physical weight. My phone was in my hand before I'd made a conscious decision. I opened the App Store and searched for something I'd never imagined I'd need. Phone tracking software. The kind that lets you see location history, messages, everything. We were on a family plan. Technically, I had every right. Technically, I installed it on my phone, linked it to Melissa's number through our carrier account, and waited. The interface was surprisingly simple. A map appeared, showing a blue dot moving through the city. Away from the grocery store, away from the dry cleaner. Heading west toward the nicer part of town, where the new condos had gone up last year. The dot stopped at the Riverside Luxury Apartments. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. My hands were steady. That surprised me. Everything inside me was screaming, but my hands were perfectly steady as I created a new folder on my desktop and labeled it Evidence. Because if I was wrong, I'd delete it and spend the rest of my life making this up to Melissa. But if I was right, I needed to be smart, methodical. My mother hadn't raised a fool, and she certainly hadn't raised a victim. The blue dot stayed at the Riverside Apartments for 17 minutes. Then it started moving again, but this time I was ready. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and the small camera I used for work documentation. I was an insurance adjuster. I knew how to gather evidence. I knew how to build an airtight case. I just never thought I'd be building one against my own wife. The Riverside Luxury Apartments sat on a corner lot where the old brewery used to be, all steel and glass and pretension. 23 floors of it. I parked 3 spaces down from Melissa's Accord and watched the blue dot on my phone hold steady on the 8th floor. 17 minutes. That's how long I sat there. Then I got out and went inside. The lobby smelled like expensive candles and new carpet. A doorman in a navy blazer looked up from his desk, but I walked past him with the confidence of someone who belonged, and he didn't stop me. The elevator had mirrors on 3 sides. I watched myself ascend. A man in khakis and a button-down who'd buried his mother 3 days ago, whose wife was somewhere above him doing something she'd lied about. The 8th floor hallway was silent except for the hum of ventilation. I checked my phone. The blue dot pulsed from apartment 814, near the end of the hall. I stood outside the door for a full minute before I knocked. Footsteps. A pause. The peephole went dark. The door opened 6 inches, chain still attached. Melissa's face appeared in the gap. She wasn't wearing the green blouse anymore. She was wearing a white bathrobe I didn't recognize. Ryan. Not a question. A statement of fact, delivered in a voice that had gone completely flat. Can I come in? You shouldn't be here. Probably not, I said. But I am. She stared at me through the gap. Behind her, I could hear movement. Someone else was in there. Is this Amber's place? I asked. Something flickered across her face. What? Amber, your coworker. The one you're always meeting for drinks. The one I've never actually met in 15 years. Ryan, go home. I inherited $2.4 million this morning, I said. My mother's been dead for 3 days, and my wife won't spend an afternoon with me because she has errands to run at a luxury apartment building. The movement behind her had stopped. Whoever was in there was listening now. This isn't what you think, Melissa said. Then explain it. She glanced over her shoulder, then back at me. I can't. Not right now. Why not? Because... She stopped, closed her eyes. Just go home, Ryan, please. Who's in there with you? That's not your business. We're married. Are we? She said it quietly, but it landed like a slap. Have we really been married for the past 8 months? Or have we just been 2 people living in the same house? I didn't have an answer for that. The truth was complicated and sharp-edged, and I wasn't sure I wanted to hold it. Let me in, I said. No. Then I'll wait out here until whoever's in there comes out. Her jaw tightened. Don't do this. Do what? Try to understand why my wife is lying to me? You're making a scene. There's nobody here but us. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her eyes I couldn't quite name. Guilt, maybe? Or resignation. or something else entirely. Fine, she said. She closed the door. I heard the chain slide free. Then the door opened all the way. The apartment was nicer than our house. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked like it came from a catalog for people who didn't check prices. Melissa stood in the entryway in her white robe, arms crossed. And sitting on the leather couch wearing jeans and a gray sweater was a man I'd never seen before. He was younger than me, early 30s maybe. Dark hair, trim build, the kind of face that probably did well in profile pictures. He stood up when I came in, but he didn't offer his hand. Ryan, Melissa said. This is Jordan. Jordan, not Amber. Jordan, I repeated. Yeah. The man, Jordan, had the decency to look uncomfortable. Listen, man, How long? I asked Melissa. She didn't answer. How long? I asked again. 8 months, she said quietly. There it was. The number I'd already known, confirmed. 8 months of distance and excuses and late nights at the office. 8 months of Amber, who didn't exist. Does he know? I asked, gesturing at Jordan. About the inheritance? Melissa's expression hardened. This has nothing to do with that. Doesn't it? You were very interested in the details this morning, very focused on the numbers. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Melissa. That's the point. Jordan shifted his weight. Maybe I should... Stay, I said. I want you to hear this. I turned back to Melissa. Is this his place? It's mine, Jordan said. I'm a software developer. I can afford it. Good for you, I said. Did she tell you we're married? Yeah. He had the grace to look ashamed. She told me everything. Everything, I said. That's interesting. Did she tell you she was planning to run errands this afternoon? Or did she tell you the truth? Melissa's face flushed. Stop it. Did she tell you my mother just died? That I asked her to spend time with me today, and she said no because she needed to buy groceries? Ryan. What groceries, Melissa? Where are they? She didn't answer. Jordan looked at the floor. I pulled out my phone and held it up so she could see the screen. The tracking app. The blue dot that had led me here. You put a tracker on my phone? Her voice went sharp with anger. Family plan, I said. You agreed to it 2 years ago, remember? For emergencies. This isn't an emergency, it's stalking. Is it? Or is it just verification? Something ugly crossed her face. You have no right. I have every right. We're married. You're my wife. Or you were, until about 8 months ago when you decided to become someone else's. Jordan stepped forward. Hey, man, I get that you're upset, but you don't get anything, I said, and my voice came out colder than I'd intended. You're sleeping with someone else's wife. You don't get to tell me how to feel about it. Ryan, Melissa moved between us. This isn't helping. What would help? Should I leave? Go home and pretend I don't know what you're doing here. You should leave because there's nothing left to say. There's plenty left to say. Like, how long were you planning to keep this going? Were you going to tell me eventually, or just wait until the inheritance cleared and then file for divorce? Her eyes narrowed. You think this is about money? I think the timing is interesting. The timing is coincidence. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been waiting for the right moment. Waiting for my mother to die so you could cash out. She slapped me. Hard. The sound of it echoed in the expensive apartment. Jordan grabbed her arm. Melissa, don't. I touched my cheek. It stung, but I didn't move. Was that for me or for you? Get out, she said. Her voice shook. Get out right now. I'm going, I said. But we're not done, not even close. I walked to the door, then stopped and looked back at Jordan. This place have good internet? He blinked. What? Internet. Streaming. You seem like the type who'd have a good setup. Yeah, I guess. Good, I said. You're going to need it. I left before either of them could respond. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up. My cheek still burned where she'd hit me. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. In the car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. Then I opened the tracking app again and took screenshots. The location, the timestamp, the duration of her visit. I opened our shared Netflix account and scrolled through the viewing history. There, like she'd said, romantic comedies watched during her solo movie nights. But when I clicked into the account details, into the section most people never bothered to check, I could see what she hadn't counted on me finding. Dual viewing sessions, 2 devices streaming simultaneously, 2 users pausing at the same moments, rewinding the same scenes. The metadata didn't lie. I took screenshots of those too. Then I drove home to our 12-year-old house that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. The drive back home felt different than the drive there. 23 minutes of silence, but productive silence. The kind where pieces slot into place. I pulled into our driveway and sat in the car for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. The house looked exactly as I'd left it. Same beige siding, same black shutters, same flower beds Melissa had stopped tending 6 months ago. Everything the same, except now I knew what I was looking at. A shell. A performance space for a marriage that had ended 8 months ago, only nobody had told me. Inside, I went straight to my office. Not the spare bedroom we called an office, my actual workspace in the basement where I kept the desktop computer I used for work-from-home days. The good machine with processing power and 2 monitors. I logged into our Netflix account first. We'd shared it since we got married. One of those small intimacies couples accumulate. Shared streaming services, joint bank accounts, family phone plans. All the little threads that weave 2 lives together until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Except now I could tell exactly where the threads had frayed. I pulled up the account settings and navigated to viewing activity. Netflix tracks everything. Most people don't know that. Every pause, every rewind, every episode watched. Time stamps down to the minute. Melissa had her own profile. Melissa's Pics, she'd called it, with a little heart emoji. I clicked through. The last 3 months told a story. Rom-coms mostly. The kind she used to make me watch with her on Friday nights before the distance started. Before Amber. Before Jordan. I opened a spreadsheet and started cross-referencing. The Notebook. Watched on a Tuesday night 2 months ago. Started at 8:47 p.m., finished at 11:03 p.m. Melissa had texted me that night saying she was working late at the office. I'd been in Milwaukee. I pulled up the location data from her phone. Riverside Luxury Apartments, apartment 814. I noted the timestamp. The movie had paused 4 times during intimate scenes. Once for 6 minutes. Once for 11. The pattern was obvious once you knew to look for it. To all the boys I've loved before. 3 weeks ago, Sunday afternoon. She'd told me she was having a spa day with Amber. The location data showed the same address. The movie paused 7 times. I worked backwards through the queue. Every solo movie night she'd mentioned. Every time she'd said she needed alone time, needed to decompress, needed space. The viewing activity showed 2 distinct pause patterns. Solo viewing. She'd pause for bathroom breaks, snack runs, maybe to check her phone. Those pauses were short, irregular, scattered throughout the runtime. But these other viewings? The pauses clustered around specific scenes, romantic scenes, intimate scenes. And they lasted too long for bathroom breaks. I exported the data. Netflix lets you download your viewing history as a CSV file. Most people don't know that either. Then I pulled up her phone's location history. I'd installed the tracking app through our family plan, completely legal since I was the account holder, and she'd agreed to the terms of service when we'd set it up years ago. The app kept 90 days of historical data. I overlaid the Netflix timestamps with the location pings. Every single romantic comedy she'd watched alone corresponded with time spent at Riverside luxury apartments. Not approximately. Exactly. The timestamps matched within minutes. The proposal, apartment 814. Crazy, stupid, love, apartment 814. When Harry met Sally, apartment 814. 17 movies over 3 months. 17 times she'd lied about where she was. 17 times she'd sat on someone else's couch, in someone else's apartment, watching movies that used to be ours. The documentation was perfect. Timestamps, location data, viewing patterns. Irrefutable. I saved everything to a folder on my desktop, labeled it Account Records. Nothing dramatic, just facts. My phone buzzed. Tyler. You okay? I stared at the message. Was I okay? I'd just discovered my wife had been watching our movies with another man, using our shared account, the account I paid for, sitting in his apartment while I sat in our house believing her lies. Fine. Gathering information. That sounds ominous. Just being thorough. I set the phone down and opened a new browser window. Logged into our email account, another shared service. We'd set it up years ago for household bills and joint expenses. The password hadn't changed. I searched for Netflix in her sent folder. Nothing unusual, just the standard promotional emails, password resets, billing confirmations. Then I searched her deleted folder. There. An email from 3 weeks ago, sent to an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, for tonight. I opened it. Can't wait to see you. I queued up that movie you mentioned, the one with Ryan Gosling. Bring wine? The email address belonged to Jordan. I recognized the domain, a tech startup in the city. I sat back in my chair. The basement was quiet except for the hum of the computer fan. Upstairs, the house settled in that way old houses do, wood contracting as the temperature dropped. She'd been planning these nights, coordinating them, queuing movies on our shared account to watch with him. I pulled up our joint credit card statement. Started scrolling through the charges from the past 3 months. Wine purchases on Tuesday evenings. Always from the same boutique liquor store, the expensive one downtown near Riverside. $40, $50 at a time. Melissa didn't drink wine alone. She'd always said it made her sleepy. Takeout charges from restaurants near the apartments. Thai food, Italian, sushi. Always ordered for 2 based on the totals. Never brought home. I'd paid for all of it. Every bottle of wine she'd brought to his apartment. Every dinner they'd shared before settling in to watch movies on my Netflix account. The documentation kept growing. I created a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, Netflix viewing activity. Column C, location data. Column D, credit card charges. Column E, text messages claiming she was elsewhere. The pattern was absolute, mathematical. For 3 months, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, like clockwork. Sometimes Sunday afternoons. I thought about the last 3 months of our marriage. The nights I'd sat alone in our living room, wondering why she was working so late. The weekends she'd claimed she needed space, needed time with friends, needed anything except time with me. I'd believed her. Every time. My phone buzzed again. Not Tyler this time. Melissa. We need to talk. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. We can discuss this tomorrow when you've calmed down. I read the message twice. When I'd calmed down, as if I were the one being unreasonable, as if I were the one who'd spent 8 months building a second life. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and logged into our cellular provider's website. Family plan, my name on the account. I navigated to the account management section. The option was right there. Download detailed usage records. I clicked it. Selected the past year. The file took 3 minutes to download. It was substantial. I opened it in Excel. Thousands of lines of data. Every call, every text, every data usage ping. All time-stamped, all logged, all perfectly preserved. I filtered for Melissa's number. Then I filtered for texts sent to Jordan's number. I'd pulled it from her phone earlier when I'd installed the tracking software. The first text was from 8 months ago. March 15th, 10:47 p.m. I couldn't read the content. The usage records only showed that texts had been sent, not what they said. But I could see the frequency. March, 47 texts. April, 93 texts. May, 112 texts. The numbers climbed month by month. By October, they were exchanging over 200 texts. Some days, 30 or 40 messages back and forth. I cross-referenced the timestamps with my own text history with Melissa. The days she'd sent 40 texts to Jordan, she'd sent me 3, maybe 4. The nights she'd texted him until midnight, she'd sent me a single message. Working late, don't wait up. I saved the usage records to the folder. Added a new tab to my spreadsheet. The computer screen glowed in the dark basement. Outside, I heard a car pass. Someone's normal Tuesday evening. Someone driving home to a house where the person they loved was actually the person they thought they loved. I looked at the folder on my desktop. Account records. Inside, Netflix viewing history with location data overlays. Credit card statements with highlighted charges. Phone usage records showing text frequency and call duration. Email correspondence. Everything documented. Everything time-stamped. Everything irrefutable. My phone buzzed. Tyler again. Seriously, you good? I typed back. Better than good. I'm being thorough. That's what worries me. I set the phone aside and stared at the folder. Melissa thought we'd talk tomorrow. Thought we'd have some calm, rational discussion about our marriage, about what happens next, about how to untangle 15 years. She didn't know I'd spent the last 2 hours building a case file. She didn't know that every lie she'd told was now cataloged and cross-referenced. She didn't know that the shared accounts she'd used to build her secret life were about to become evidence. I clicked the folder closed and shut down the computer. Tomorrow, we'd talk. But tonight, I had work to do. The Netflix account was still logged in on my laptop. I'd never paid much attention to the viewing history before. Why would I? But now, staring at the screen with the folder of evidence beside me, I understood it was another layer of proof, another thread in the pattern. I clicked through to Melissa's profile. She'd created it years ago, insisting we needed separate profiles to keep our recommendations clean. Otherwise, the algorithm gets confused, she'd said. Made sense at the time. The watch history loaded. Romantic comedies mostly. The kind she claimed to watch during her me time when I worked late or visited Tyler. When Harry Met Sally. Notting Hill. The Proposal. All movies she'd mentioned watching alone, curled up on the couch with wine while I was out. Except the location data told a different story. I opened the spreadsheet I'd started, cross-referencing dates. February 14th, Valentine's Day, ironically, she'd watched The Notebook while I'd been at Tyler's helping him install new kitchen cabinets. Her phone had pinged from Riverside Luxury Apartments at 8:47 p.m. The movie runtime was 2 hours and 3 minutes. Her phone stayed at Jordan's address until 11:32 p.m. But here's what caught my attention. The progress bar showed 2 distinct pause points. One at 42 minutes. Another at 1 hour, 18 minutes. I clicked into the account settings, navigating through menus I'd never explored before. Netflix tracked devices, IP addresses, viewing patterns. The 42-minute pause corresponded with a scene I remembered from when we'd watched it together years ago. The rain scene. The kiss. Intimate enough that if you were watching with someone new, someone you were sleeping with, you might pause, might get distracted. The second pause came during the argument scene. Less romantic, more emotional. The kind of moment where you might discuss your own relationship, your own feelings. I pulled up the IP address log. The movie had been streamed from an IP address that wasn't ours. A quick search showed it belonged to a block of addresses assigned to Riverside luxury apartments. She'd been watching at his place. On his couch, probably. Maybe in his bed. And she'd lied about it. Specifically lied, mentioning that movie by name when I'd asked what she'd done that evening. Oh, just watched The Notebook and had some wine. You know how I get with that movie. I'd thought she meant crying. Now I understood she'd meant something else entirely. I went through the rest of the list methodically. Crazy, stupid, love. On March 3rd. Her phone at Jordan's apartment. 2 pause points at intimate scenes. About time on March 22nd. Same pattern. Silver linings. Playbook on April 8th. Every single solo movie night she'd mentioned had been watched from his IP address. Every single one showed the pause patterns of 2 people watching together, not one person alone. The Netflix account had a feature I'd never noticed before: viewer analytics. It tracked not just what was watched, but how. Single viewer patterns looked different from dual viewing. Solo watchers paused for bathroom breaks, phone calls, random interruptions. The pauses were scattered, unpredictable. 2 people watching together paused at predictable moments. Scene transitions. Emotional beats. And, this was the damning part, intimate scenes. The algorithm could actually detect it, flagging content as viewed with partner based on pause patterns and rewind behavior. Melissa's solo viewing history was flagged as partnered viewing. Every single movie. I took screenshots, added them to the folder, cross-referenced them with her location data, her credit card statements showing wine purchases on those same dates, her text messages to Jordan confirming their plans. The pattern was airtight. But I wasn't done yet. I logged into our shared email account, the one we used for household bills and streaming services. Searched for Netflix confirmation emails. Found the one from 8 months ago when Melissa had suddenly insisted we upgrade to the premium plan. We should get the 4-screen option, she'd said. That way we can both watch at the same time without kicking each other off. I'd agreed without thinking about it. An extra few dollars a month, whatever made her happy. Now I understood. She hadn't wanted it so we could watch simultaneously. She'd wanted it so she could watch with Jordan without me noticing we were both logged in at the same time. I checked the account activity logs. Sure enough, there were dozens of instances where 3 screens were active simultaneously. My profile watching ESPN or a documentary. Melissa's profile streaming romantic movies from Jordan's IP address. And a third profile, one I'd never noticed before, labeled simply guest, streaming the same content at the same time from the same IP address. Jordan's profile, on our family account, using the subscription I paid for. The audacity of it twisted something in my chest. Not just the affair, not just the lying, but the casual theft of it. The assumption that I was too stupid or too trusting to notice. I navigated to the account settings and clicked through to the billing history. $15.99 per month for the premium plan. Times 8 months. $127.92. Not a fortune. But it was my money. Paying for them to watch romantic movies together while I thought my wife was home alone. I took more screenshots, added them to the folder. Then I opened a new browser window and logged into Melissa's iCloud account. We'd set up family sharing years ago for the photo storage, and she'd never changed her password. The same 6 digits she used for everything. Our anniversary month and day. Her location history was there, backed up automatically. I downloaded it. 8 months of data showing every place her phone had been, time-stamped and GPS tagged. I imported it into a mapping program and watched the pattern emerge. Home to work, work to the grocery store to riverside luxury apartments. The blue dots clustered there like a rash. Tuesday evenings, Thursday afternoons, Sunday mornings when she claimed to be at yoga. Yoga. I pulled up her credit card statements again. No charges for a yoga studio. No gym membership. Just wine purchases and restaurant bills and one charge that caught my eye. Victoria's Secret, March 15th, $143. She hadn't worn anything new for me, hadn't modeled anything, hadn't mentioned shopping. I added it to the folder. My phone buzzed. Tyler. You doing okay? I stared at the message. Was I okay? I was sitting in my house in the dark, documenting my wife's affair with the kind of methodical precision I usually reserved for insurance claims. My mother was 3 days dead. My marriage was over. I had $2.4 million I didn't want, and a folder full of evidence that proved the last 8 months of my life had been a performance. Fine, I typed back. Just organizing some things. Call me if you need anything. I set the phone down. The Netflix account was still open on my laptop. Melissa's profile stared back at me, her queue full of romantic comedies and prestige dramas. The kind of content she'd curated carefully, probably discussing each choice with Jordan, building their own little world inside our family account. I could delete it, wipe her profile clean, change the password, lock her out. But that would tip my hand. She'd know I knew, and she'd have time to prepare. Time to get her story straight, hire a lawyer, move money around. No. Better to let her think she was still in control. Let her believe I was still the oblivious husband, too grief-stricken over his mother to notice his wife's absence. I had a better idea anyway. I opened a new document and started typing. A timeline. Every date, every location ping, every Netflix viewing session, every credit card charge, every text message, cross-referenced and annotated. The kind of documentation that would make a divorce attorney salivate. But more than that, the kind of documentation that could be forwarded, shared, made public. Melissa worked in marketing. Her professional reputation mattered. Her image mattered. She'd built her career on being polished, trustworthy, reliable. I wondered how her boss would feel about an employee who used company time to coordinate an affair. The text messages showed dozens sent during business hours. The location data showed her leaving work early on Thursdays, the same Thursday she claimed to be working late on a big campaign. I wondered how HR would respond to that. But I was getting ahead of myself. First, I needed to finish the documentation, make it bulletproof. Then I'd decide what to do with it. The house was silent around me. Melissa still wasn't home. Her location showed her phone still at Jordan's apartment, the blue dot stationary. I kept typing. The first thing I did Monday morning was call in sick. My boss didn't question it. I just lost my mother, and I'd banked enough goodwill over 14 years to buy myself a week if I needed it. I needed it. Melissa texted around 9. Staying at hotel few more days. Need space to think. I didn't respond. Let her think. Let her believe I was the one scrambling, the one desperate to fix things. Meanwhile, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, 3 monitors borrowed from my home office setup, and a legal pad filling with notes. The Netflix data was damning, but it was circumstantial. What I needed was pattern. Proof of systematic deception, not just isolated incidents. I started with the credit card statements, going back a full year. Our accounts were joint, had been since we married. Melissa handled most of the daily purchases, and I'd never had reason to question them. Why would I? We were married. We trusted each other. Technically, The charges painted a picture I'd been too blind to see. Nordstrom, 347, January 15th. The green blouse, probably. Wine shop, 89, January 22nd. Italian restaurant, not mom's favorite, a different one across town, 156, February 3rd. Another wine shop, 112, February 18th. Sephora, 203, March 2nd. I cross-referenced the dates with her calendar, the one synced to our shared iCloud account. Every purchase corresponded to a work dinner, or client meeting, or team-building event. Except I had the Netflix data showing she was at Jordan's apartment those same nights. And then I found something better. Melissa's company used a digital timesheet system for tracking billable hours. She'd complained about it endlessly when they rolled it out last spring. Too invasive, too micromanaging, Big Brother watching. She'd shown me the app once, laughing bitterly at how it tracked her location during work hours to verify she was actually meeting clients. She was still logged into the app on our shared iPad. I opened it. Held my breath. The system kept logs going back 18 months. I exported everything to a spreadsheet and started comparing. Work hours claimed versus actual location data versus Netflix viewing times versus credit card charges. The contradictions emerged like fractures in ice. February 3rd. Timesheet claimed 6 billable hours for client dinner downtown. Location data showed her phone at Riverside Luxury Apartments from 6:47 p.m. to 11:23 p.m. Netflix showed When Harry Met Sally, streaming at Jordan's apartment from 7:15 p.m. to 9:02 p.m. Credit card showed the Italian restaurant charge at 6:34 p.m. Carry out, I realize now, not dining in. March 10th. Timesheet claimed 8 hours off-site strategy session. Location data. Jordan's apartment, 9:15 a.m. to 5:47 p.m. Netflix. The Notebook, at 12:30 p.m. No credit card charges that day, which meant Jordan probably paid. April 22nd. Timesheet claimed 4 hours vendor meeting Westside. Location data. Jordan's apartment, 1 p.m. to 8:34 p.m. Netflix. Crazy, Stupid, Love, at 2:15 p.m. Credit card. Wine shop, $94, purchased at 12:47 p.m. I documented 43 separate instances over 8 months where Melissa's claimed work hours didn't match her actual location. 43 times she'd billed her company for hours spent with Jordan. 43 times she'd committed timesheet fraud. That was a termination offense. Possibly a legal one, depending on how vindictive her company wanted to be about falsified billing records. I saved everything to an encrypted folder. Backed it up to 3 separate cloud services and a physical drive I locked in my desk drawer. Then I did something that surprised me. I called a divorce attorney. Not to file, not yet. Just to understand my options. The lawyer's name was Patricia Brennan, and she came recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own messy split 2 years back. Her office was in a converted Victorian downtown, all exposed brick and modern furniture that cost more than my car. She was younger than I expected, early 40s maybe, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and reading glasses on a chain around her neck. "Mr. Weber," she said, shaking my hand, "I'm sorry for your loss." It took me a moment to realize she meant my mother, not my marriage. "Thank you." We sat. She folded her hands on the desk and waited. I told her everything. The inheritance, the distance, the tracking, the apartment, Jordan, the evidence I'd compiled. I didn't embellish, didn't editorialize. Just facts, the way I'd write up an insurance claim. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Wisconsin is a no-fault divorce state," she said finally. "The affair itself won't impact the division of assets, but the timeline matters. The timeline. You inherited $2.4 million 3 days ago. If you file now, that inheritance is marital property subject to division. If you wait, if you can establish that the marriage was irretrievably broken before the inheritance, we might be able to argue it should be excluded from the marital estate." I felt something shift in my chest. How do I establish that? The affair helps. 8 months of documented infidelity, emotional abandonment, financial deception. But the stronger argument is her timesheet fraud. She leaned forward. If she's terminated for cause, if there's a clear record of misconduct that predates your inheritance, it demonstrates the marriage was already compromised. She can't benefit from your mother's estate while simultaneously destroying your marriage. You want me to get her fired. I want you to protect your assets. Her voice was calm, clinical. What she did to her employer is separate from what she did to you. But the consequences of her choices, those are hers to bear. I thought about Melissa at Jordan's apartment, streaming romantic comedies while billing her company for client meetings. Thought about her slapping me, telling me to leave. Thought about her text this morning. Need space to think. What do I need to do? Patricia pulled out a legal pad. First, don't file for divorce yet. We need the timeline to work in our favor. Second, compile everything you have into a formal report. I'll review it, make sure it's airtight. Third, and this is important, you need to decide how far you're willing to go. Meaning if you report her timesheet fraud to her employer, there will be consequences. Termination, almost certainly. Possible legal action if they decide to pursue recovery of falsely billed hours. Your wife will know you're the one who provided the evidence. This won't be a quiet divorce. I looked out the window. Downtown Milwaukee stretched below, all glass and steel and people going about their lives, unaware their worlds could shatter in an instant. She made her choices, I said. Patricia nodded. Then let's make sure you're protected when the fallout comes. I left her office with a retainer agreement and a list of next steps. The consultation fee was $400, which I paid in cash from the emergency fund Melissa didn't know I kept in my desk drawer. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. Tyler, how you holding up? Lawyer meeting, I typed back. Building the case. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. You sure about this? I thought about Melissa's face when I'd appeared at Jordan's door. The shock, yes, but also the anger. Not guilt, not remorse, just fury that I'd discovered her secret. Yeah, I sent. I'm sure. The house was exactly as I'd left it, silent, empty, waiting. I made coffee I didn't drink and returned to my laptop. The next step was the formal report. Patricia wanted documentation that would hold up to legal scrutiny, which meant organizing everything chronologically, cross-referencing sources, eliminating any gaps in the timeline. I worked through lunch, through dinner. Around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Melissa, we need to talk. Tomorrow? I stared at the message, imagined her in some hotel room, probably texting Jordan between messages to me, probably already planning how to spin this, how to make me the villain in whatever story she'd constructed. Sure, I typed. Come by the house. 7 p.m. That gave me 24 hours to finish the report, 24 hours to prepare for whatever conversation she thought we were going to have, 24 hours to decide exactly how much mercy I was willing to show. I saved my work, backed it up again, and finally allowed myself to feel something other than clinical detachment. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a drop I couldn't see the bottom of. It felt like the moment before everything changed. It felt like freedom. The next morning, I sat at my desk in the spare bedroom we'd converted into a home office, staring at the evidence folder on the screen. 43 instances of timesheet fraud. Each one documented with location data, timestamps, Netflix viewing history, cross-referenced with her employer's billing records. I'd spent 3 hours after midnight pulling it together. The kind of work I did for insurance fraud cases, except this time the subject was my wife. My phone buzzed. Tyler, how you holding up? Fine, I typed back. Meeting her tonight at 7. You sure about this? I wasn't sure about anything anymore, but I had 6 hours before Melissa arrived, and I needed to decide what I was actually going to do with the information I'd compiled. The cursor blinked in my email draft. Subject line: Confidential report. Employee timesheet irregularities. Attached: the full documentation. Recipient field: empty. I could fill it in. Janet Reeves, HR director at Melissa's firm. I'd met her twice at company holiday parties. She'd seemed competent, professional, the kind of person who would take timesheet fraud seriously. One click, and Melissa's career would implode. I closed the laptop. The house felt different in daylight. Emptier somehow, even though nothing had changed physically. The coffee maker still sat on the counter where it always had. Melissa's running shoes were still by the door. The framed photo from our 10th anniversary still hung in the hallway, both of us smiling on a beach in Florida, her hand on my shoulder, my arm around her waist. I'd looked at that photo every day for 5 years. Now I couldn't remember what I'd been thinking when it was taken, whether I'd been happy or just performing happiness for the camera. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Weber, this is Christine Dalton from Riverside Luxury Apartments. I straightened in my chair. Yes? I'm calling about the incident on Saturday evening. We've reviewed the security footage from the 8th floor, and I wanted to follow up regarding your visit to Unit 817. My stomach tightened. I wasn't aware there was an incident. The resident of that unit filed a complaint about an unauthorized visitor creating a disturbance. Our footage shows you entering the hallway at 6:47 p.m. and remaining there for approximately 8 minutes before departing with a woman matching the description of your wife. I said nothing. Mr. Weber, I need to inform you that you're not listed as an authorized guest for that unit. If you attempt to return to the property, we'll need to involve law enforcement. Do you understand? I understand. Thank you for your cooperation. She disconnected. Jordan had filed a complaint. Of course he had. Probably the moment Melissa and I left. Protecting himself, establishing a paper trail. Smart from his perspective. It meant he understood what was coming. I pulled up the evidence folder again and scrolled through the Netflix data. The Notebook. Crazy, stupid love. When Harry Met Sally. All watched at Jordan's apartment between February and April. All while Melissa told me she was working late or running errands or meeting Amber for drinks. The viewing history showed pause patterns. Long pauses during intimate scenes. Resume timestamps suggesting they'd been occupied. I closed the file. At noon, I drove to my mother's house. The realtor had left a lockbox on the door, but I still had my key. Inside, everything looked exactly as it had 3 days ago when I'd found her in the bedroom, already gone. The paramedics had been professional, efficient. They'd asked questions I couldn't answer about her medical history, medications, last known symptoms. Tyler and I had divided the initial tasks. He'd handled the funeral arrangements. I'd handled the legal paperwork. Neither of us had started dealing with her belongings yet. I walked through the living room, past the bookshelf filled with mysteries and thrillers, past the recliner where she'd spent most evenings reading. The kitchen still smelled faintly of her coffee, dark roast, always dark roast, with too much cream. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like Wisconsin, was a photo of the three of us. Me, Tyler, Mom. Taken maybe 5 years ago at a Brewers game. She was wearing her lucky cap, grinning at the camera. She'd never liked Melissa much, never said it directly, but I'd caught the hesitation in her voice when she asked about our marriage. The careful way she phrased questions about our plans, our happiness, our future. You seem tired lately, she'd said the last time I'd visited, 2 weeks before she died. Everything okay at home? Fine, I told her. Just work stress. She'd nodded, but her expression had suggested she didn't believe me. I pulled the photo off the refrigerator and slipped it into my pocket. By 4 o'clock, I was back home, sitting at the kitchen table with a legal pad. I'd made a list. 2 columns. Report the fraud. Melissa loses her job, possibly faces criminal charges, destroys her professionally, makes divorce proceedings messier, satisfies the part of me that wanted her to suffer. Don't report the fraud. Keep it as leverage. Use it in divorce negotiations. Maintain moral high ground. Avoid looking vindictive. Potentially protect the inheritance more cleanly. Patricia Brennan had been clear. Wisconsin was no fault. The affair didn't matter legally. The timesheet fraud didn't matter legally. What mattered was the timing of the inheritance and whether I could prove the marriage was already broken. But the fraud mattered professionally. And professionally, Melissa was vulnerable. I drew a line through both columns and wrote a third option. Wait. At 6:30, I heard her car in the driveway. I'd spent the last hour arranging the living room. The evidence folder sat on the coffee table, closed. My laptop was open beside it, screen dark. I'd positioned myself in the armchair, my usual spot, the one I always took when we used to watch TV together back when we still did things together. The front door opened. Melissa stepped inside, still wearing her work clothes. Black slacks, white blouse, heels. She looked tired, wary. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She set her purse on the entry table and walked into the living room, stopping when she saw the folder. "What's that?" "Sit down." She remained standing. "Ryan, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight." "I'm not fighting. I'm showing you what I have." "What you have?" I opened the folder and turned it toward her. The first page showed the Netflix viewing history, color-coded by location. Red for Jordan's apartment, blue for our house, green for her office. She stared at it for 3 seconds, then looked at me. "You've been tracking me. Family phone plan. Location services you agreed to. Nothing illegal." "This is insane." "Sit down, Melissa." She sat, perched on the edge of the couch, spine straight, hands folded in her lap. Defensive posture. I'd seen it before. Every time I'd asked about Amber, about her late nights, about the distance between us. I flipped to the second page, the credit card statements. February 14th, $73 at Vintner's Wine Bar. You told me you were working late. I was. March 8th, $86 at Romano's. You said you had a client dinner. Ryan, April 22nd, $112 at that French place on Water Street. You said you were at Amber's. She closed her eyes. I flipped to the third page. The timesheet comparison. 43 instances, I said quietly. 43 times you billed your employer for hours you spent at Jordan's apartment. That's fraud, Melissa. That's a felony. Her eyes snapped open. You wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Report it. You wouldn't destroy my career over this. I leaned back in the chair and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd married 15 years ago. The woman who'd promised to love me in sickness and health, for richer or poorer. The woman who'd spent 8 months lying to me. I haven't decided yet, I said. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Melissa's face had gone pale, her hands twisting in her lap. Ryan, please. I want you to leave, I said. Pack your things. You have until Sunday. This is my house, too. It's in both our names. But my lawyer says that given the circumstances, I have grounds for exclusive occupancy during separation. You can contest it, but that means going to court. That means discovery. That means all of this. I gestured at the folder. Becomes part of the public record. She looked at the evidence, then at me. Something crumbled in her expression. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? I don't know. We grew apart. You were always working, always focused on your mother, and Jordan was there, and he listened, and you billed your company for the time you spent with him. And you used our Netflix account to watch movies with him. And you spent our money on wine for his apartment. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She didn't answer. I stood up. Sunday, pack your essentials. We'll figure out the rest through lawyers. What about the inheritance? There it was, the question I'd been waiting for. What about it? It's marital property. I'm entitled to half. We'll see what the court says. She stood too, anger finally breaking through the fear. You're going to try to keep it all, aren't you? That's what this is about. The tracking, the evidence, the threats about my job. You want to punish me. I want what's fair. Fair? You're threatening to destroy my career. You destroyed our marriage. We destroyed it together. You think I didn't notice you pulling away? You think I didn't feel you choosing your mother over me for the last 2 years? The accusation landed like a physical blow. She was dying. She was always dying. Every week, some new crisis, some new emergency. And you ran to her every single time, and I was left here alone. So you found someone else? Yes. The word came out like a sob. Yes, I found someone who actually wanted to spend time with me, who didn't treat me like an obligation, who made me feel like I mattered. I looked at her standing in our living room, tears streaming down her face, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just a vast empty distance. Sunday, I said again. Be gone by Sunday. She left without another word. The divorce took 11 months. Patricia was right about the inheritance. By documenting the affair's timeline and Melissa's systematic deception, we successfully argued that the marriage had been irretrievably broken before my mother's death. The court awarded me the full inheritance as separate property. I never reported the timesheet fraud. I kept it as leverage during negotiations, and Melissa's lawyer was smart enough to recognize the threat. She didn't contest the inheritance, didn't ask for alimony. We split the house proceeds and our retirement accounts 50-50, and she walked away. I heard through mutual friends that she and Jordan broke up 4 months after she moved out. Apparently, the reality of their relationship couldn't survive outside the bubble of secrecy and stolen moments. She moved to Minnesota for a new job. I never saw her again. Tyler helped me clean out Mom's house. We donated most of her belongings, kept a few meaningful items, sold the property. The money went into a trust for his kids' college funds. I stayed in Milwaukee, kept my job. Started seeing a therapist who helped me understand that grief and betrayal often arrive together, and that surviving both requires letting yourself feel everything, then choosing what to carry forward. 2 years later, I met someone new. Her name was Rachel, and she was a librarian with a dry sense of humor and no interest in romantic comedies. On our 3rd date, I told her everything: the affair, the tracking, the evidence folder, the divorce. I expected her to run. Instead, she said, "That must have been incredibly painful." It was. Are you still angry? I thought about it. No, I'm just tired of carrying it. Then maybe it's time to put it down. We married 18 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Tyler was my best man. He gave a toast about second chances and new beginnings, and I realized I'd stopped thinking about Melissa entirely. She was just a person I used to know. A chapter that had ended. The inheritance sits in investments I don't touch. Maybe someday I'll use it for something meaningful. Maybe I'll leave it to the kids Rachel and I talk about having. Maybe it doesn't matter. Money was never the point. The point was that when everything fell apart, I had a choice. I could have destroyed Melissa professionally. Could have made her suffer the way I'd suffered. Could have turned my pain into a weapon and wielded it until there was nothing left of either of us. But revenge is just another way of staying attached to something that's already gone. And I'd spent enough time living in the past. What I learned, sitting in that basement documenting my wife's betrayal, was that the truth doesn't need embellishment. It doesn't need rage or righteousness. It just needs to be seen clearly, acknowledged honestly, and then released. Melissa made her choices. I made mine. In the end, we both got exactly what we'd earned. Freedom from a marriage that had died long before either of us admitted it. The last time I drove past Riverside luxury apartments, they'd repainted the exterior. New color, new landscaping, new tenants living lives I knew nothing about. I didn't slow down. Didn't feel anything except a mild curiosity about whether the 8th floor still had the same carpet. Some endings aren't dramatic. They're just over. And sometimes that's enough.